On the show today, a gentleman who was not 12 in 2016, Glenn Stretch Smith, our Cowboys analyst, good enough to join us tonight.
The hole,
as always, what else do I do but that? Stretch, we appreciate you joining us as always. What did you make of the Dallas Cowboys draft class here in 2025 and where they stand after this last weekend?
I think Coach Schottenheimer put a direct stamp immediately on what he wants, which is a bigger, more physical, we're going to come after you and kind of maul you types, big guys up front. What I like and what I got more out of it, fellas, is when you look at the two big defensive tackles, when was the last time you saw two 330-pound squared stance defensive tackles who were two-gap guys in a game for the Cowboys? It's always been they wanted, whether it was back to the Rod Marinelli days and they wanted the stagger stance guys that get up the field. Then we got into Mike Zimmer and he wanted those wider guys so he could get, more active linebackers in those A-gaps. I think Eberflus is saying, hey, I want to get bigger, and you know what? We're going to start with stopping the run. And I think that's exactly what I got out of this draft was them saying, we're going to get more physical as a football team.
The selection of Booker off the top. First of all, the excitement was there, which is great to see. It still exists with the star. I know we like to poke fun at sometimes how much the star is kind of diminished in recent memories when he's talking about his childhood memories being a team that didn't win the Super Bowl. But to still see that level of excitement, to still see an offensive lineman that, first of all, can run. Clearly, watching him run down the hallway, but more importantly, sets the tone. And I felt like you kind of hit the nail on the head, Coach, which was Schottenheimer said he wanted to run the ball. First pick, guard. Even though there were some splash picks on there, which we know they did with CeeDee Lamb a couple of years back, and God knows where they'd be if they didn't make that pick at that time right now with the wide receiver core. But they put the emphasis on we got to control the line of scrimmage, especially with the Eagles across the way.
You're exactly right, Andrew. That's the message they're sending, not only to the Eagles, but to Dan Quinn and, quite frankly, to the rest of the division. And I think it's going to be great to, go to training camp and see how different training camp is, see how things are going to shape up with they've got a they drafted two backs. They signed two backs in free agency. So I don't want to get out ahead of the show and what you guys are doing, but when you look at what they want to do, I think this is more than just saying they want to run the football. They're showing we are going to run the football.
I like the player. I don't love the pick only because 12 is awfully rich for an offensive guard, but I keep bringing myself back to the thought of 5 years from now when we look back at this draft, it's not going to matter as much exactly where these guys went from a number perspective in the order. It's going to matter who got a player and who didn't. And I do think the Cowboys got a player in Tyler Booker. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play starter for them. I think he has the goods to be able to potentially grow into a very good player for this team. And if that is what happens here, the fact that it was 6 to 8 picks earlier at the very least, then you should probably take a guard, if not a whole lot more than that, depending on who you ask. If they got a player, they got a player, and it seems like they really may have.
And I think you make a good point, Mike. It doesn't, when you draft an offensive lineman that high, it doesn't feel very sexy. I know, Randy Galloway's calling me, I draft the Longhorn receiver. And I'm like, hey, bud.
That's a pretty good impression.
Yeah, they put them up there with numbers, and they have to trust in how they put them up there. And if Booker had that much better, let's say, draft number than anybody else, that's who you have to pick. And I think that's what you saw them do. And when we talk about it being sexy, Mike and Andrew, does that mean that are we just looking at the first round? Because you look at those first 3 picks, and they were all graded better than where the Cowboys picked them. So where we say, well, that doesn't look very sexy. Now you look at the 3 picks and you think, well, maybe they did better than what this first round pick looks like, which is Booker chugging it up that hallway and tugging on the back of his britches.
Coach,
he was fired up, man.
Yeah, that's a good segue, though. In terms of who we got, who's the person you're eyeing that's going to be the surprise from this group?
I think Ravel. I mean, I looked at him, and I'm, this is a young man that he only played in 3 games this last year, and he had 2 interceptions in those 3 games. Then he gets hurt in practice, tears his ACL. But you watch him initially, you put him on at East Carolina, and everybody's thinking, well, we need an SEC player. We need a. Hey, he is long and he is big, and when you see that, all of a sudden now you got to look at the entire. I think that the whole puzzle, and you got to say, okay, Diggs and Bland, and yeah, we lost Lewis, but all of a sudden we're a lot longer in the secondary, maybe than they've been in a long time.
He's one of the best stories in the draft. Savone Ravel, the kid out of East Carolina that they took in the 3rd round. To your point, if not for the ACL injury, probably would have been a first-round pick, and even despite the ACL injury, was viewed by many as a second-round pick, and Dallas gets him at number 76 in the 3rd round. So even with that in consideration, it's a big-time value pick for the Cowboys. And this is a guy that was, at one point in time, working at an Amazon overnight distribution warehouse, multiple serious injuries, stuck with East Carolina, even though some of the SEC programs you're talking about wanted him after his first year at East Carolina. This is a kid who's got a whole mess of talent, and as he gets healthy over the course of the summer, they think potentially even during training camp, probably will start training camp on PUP, but then come off hopefully pretty quickly thereafter. This is a kid that's got some serious talent and could be a real player for them for a while.
100%. And my guy from this group, I'll just throw it out there, Jaden Blue. They've needed a dynamic running back for a while. He showed a lot in Texas's offense, and he was versatile, mobile in all phases of the game. And even if he's a fraction of that, if he turns into Tony Pollard to some degree, that's a huge help for an offense that needs that extra weapon.
It's a great pick in the 5th round if they get Tony Pollard out of that pick. The other one that we do need to mention that we hadn't just yet, Donovan Ezeraku. He was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year that they got in the 2nd round. He's a really, really talented kid that could be a pretty quick impact player for the Cowboys there on the edge.